I'm really happy to talk to Emma Gunavardhana today. Emma, tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you do.
So my name is Emma and I'm a broadcaster. I have a podcast called The Emma Gunn Show, which has had over 15 million global downloads. My career background is that I started in beauty journalism. And then about 10 years ago, when I went freelance, I started to broaden my perspective. And so the podcast, although it will still feature guests from the beauty world, is much more about how my guests have navigated risks, curveballs, the obstacles of life, and then they share with me their life lessons.
Emma, thank you so much for that. How did you get there? When, as a girl, did you think I want to get into the beauty industry?
I think every young girl looks up to their mum's beauty bag, is fascinated by the makeup within it. I was no different. I also had terrible skin as a teenager. And so the beauty pages of magazines were my refuge and where I found information that I couldn't find anywhere else. And I loved the idea of being able to do that when I was grown up. And most of the movies that I watched when I was a girl, a lot of the female protagonists were in the creative arts in some way, whether it was advertising, media, or journalism. And for me, that seemed like a great destination to work towards.
Emma, what makes you get up in the morning?
I like to sleep well. I like to work out first thing in the morning. I like to move. I like to wake up with sunlight, which is why I find winter quite difficult. So what gets me up in the morning is that feeling of anything is possible today. So let's jump out of bed and get going.
Emma, and what what would you say is the thing that you enjoy most about your job, either as a sort of beauty writer, broadcaster, a podcast host? How do you get inspired to interview certain people or write about certain things?
I love seeing the world through other people's eyes. I love giving other people the space to talk and share with me their experiences, which is why I really love to have people on the show who have lived a life that I simply couldn't even imagine, whether it's a Secret Service agent, whether it's a hostage negotiator, whether it's one of the most famous fitness trainers in the world. I cannot possibly imagine what it's like waking up and seeing the world through their lens. And I love just sitting back and letting them tell me what life feels like for them. I find that such an enriching experience to get to see the world and understand so many different perspectives.
Emma, when did you realize that you're good with words?
I definitely know that writing and creating audio content and video content is something that I feel really comfortable doing.
Emma, and what would your tips be for someone who wants to either get into the beauty industry or start a podcast? What would you give? What tips from your experience would you give them?
I think the tips I would give them would be advice I listened to years ago, which is if you would make something, if you would watch it, if you would listen to it, if you would read it, then make it. And I really do think every time I've shared that advice with anybody and they have followed it, they have said, yeah, I absolutely needed to hear that because no one is unique. I have had many thoughts that I thought were completely my own. And then when I share them on the podcast, I will get dozens, sometimes hundreds of messages from people saying, you put into words exactly what it was that I've been thinking. And so if you would watch it, absolutely someone else will. And you just have to find your audience.
Thank you for that, Emma. Thank you for sharing that. Emma, what you've done so many great things. What do you plan to do? Is there anything in your future you plan, goals you have, where you want to go? Where is your journey going?
I think it's important to have ideas in your head of where you would like to get to and goals that you would like to achieve. I think that's really vital. Otherwise, you just coast. But I also think it's really important to start the day and just get your day done. So I try not to linger too much on goals. I'm not one for a dream board. I'm not one for sort of going down that route with things, vision boards and everything. I try to be a little bit more grounded and just think, right, I know that that's something that I want to get to. So every single day I'm going to make an effort towards that, whether it's to do with work or whether it's to do with, for example, push-ups. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll know that I couldn't do push-ups last summer. So I wanted to be able to do push-ups. So every single day I showed up on the mat and I did variations of push-ups until I could do push-ups. It's as simple as that.
Thank you so much for talking to me today, Emma.
Thank you for having me.